Good morning, everybody. Pastor Rick here, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for March 13th, 2023. About halfway through March already. Can't believe we're screaming through the months of 2023 so fast, but hopefully we'll be in spring here pretty quick, and hopefully the time change didn't throw you off too bad. But in any rate, let's talk about suffering. Suffering for good, and it's from Scripture today. We're going to talk about trial and suffering in a slightly different manner than you're probably used to. This is from 1 Peter, the Apostle Peter, writing to all churches. This was not to one church or one person, so it's a general letter. And in chapter 3, we're going to start in verse 8. It says, "Finally, all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you are called, so that you may inherit a blessing." So that's kind of an interesting thought. It's not interesting thought, kind of an interesting passage of Scripture. Let's elevate it to where it belongs. We're not used to, in the moment of someone being against or opposing us, maybe unfortunately even outright rejecting us and what we say, because we're forwarding the gospel message. We're not used to, in any circumstance, regardless of how important it is, immediately defaulting to a position of blessing to a person who is opposing us, who is against us, who is maybe even trying to bring some sort of evil or persecution against us. So what Peter is calling us to do here is basically suffer for good, God's good. And like pretty much everything, I don't want to be dramatic or overly dramatic, but like pretty much everything, it's a matter of understanding perception of understanding, and the difference between a biblical truth and a worldly, I don't want to call it truth, a worldly construct of how a situation happens. We see so many people up in each other's faces, forwarding agendas, trying to be the loudest, the most heard, the most followers, the most clicks, the most airtime, you go on and on and on. And it requires them to turn up the noise quite a bit of what they're saying, because everybody else is, and if they don't follow suit, they'll get drowned out by the nonsense and the noise all around them, even if they themselves are espousing nonsense and noise and not really adding to the conversation, just adding to the noise. If they want their noise to be the one that ends up on the winning floor receiving the social accolades, then it has to be the loudest, the biggest, the most, and you get the idea. Well, what does that do, though? Does that really serve anybody? Does that really accomplish anything? Does that lift anything up? No, it's just more noise when you break it all down. You pull back the layers on it. The ideologies are still ideologies of men, no matter how well-intentioned. And when I say men, of course I mean mankind, not just men, but ideologies of men. And it, no matter how well-intentioned, is going to be flawed and temporary. And so we then have to be different, because as the Scripture says, we are called for this so that we may receive a blessing. So in order for us to receive our blessings from God, we have to live up to our calling. We have to be as God says we're supposed to be. We have to live by biblical definitions of things and not worldly definitions of things. We have to carry out our own unique mission on behalf of God, and not live a life that the world dictates to us. And so, yeah, we're going to create a ruckus every once in a while. Going to draw some ire, maybe even some outright persecution and evil. So then what's the response to that? Because the natural human response would be to fight back, right? Defend yourself, defend your ideas, defend your church. Understandable. But like most things, biblically, that would not be the right thing to do. You're not going to achieve a biblical definition of peace or win, however you want to define that, by engaging in the world on the world's terms. You have available to you, because you're not of the world anymore. A professed believer is a member of heaven now. You have been set apart for the work of God. And so you no longer have a need to engage the world on its terms. You can engage the world on behalf of God and on his terms. And I bet you can figure out which one is best there. So by not trying to repay evil for evil or insult for insult, or not trying to gain advantage over another because of what they've said or done to or about you, we can serve God. We can demonstrate faith in God's promises that he will be the one to exact any revenge or wrath that needs to be exacted. We can demonstrate faith and trust in God that he does in fact keep his promises and that he will provide for us regardless of the situation. We can show in these situations that we don't have to live by worldly means, that our joy and our peace can come from somewhere else, and that somewhere else is Jesus Christ and the love of Christ and our faith in God and what he has said life is supposed to be like. So listen, brothers and sisters, I want you to take Peter's advice here. Be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil for evil or insult for insult. Instead, be a blessing by showing the love of Christ in every situation. And then you can be a servant of God. You can move the kingdom forward. You can be part of the good purposes of God. You can suffer for good. I love you. Have a great day. I'll talk to you next time.